This story is not about me, and I am not someone who would go into the deep web for any reason. This story actually happened to a colleague and a good friend of mine, and when I asked him if he had a problem with me publishing this story, he said he did not. For the sake of privacy and security, I will refer to him as Ron. Ron is a good man, probably one of the nicest people I know, and he really didn't deserve what happened to him. I have known him for several years, and I believe everything he has told me. A few years ago, Ron was living in a cozy house in the suburbs with his beloved wife of 10 years. Ron and Karen had a 7-year-old daughter, and everything seemed to be going well. Ron had a good job and was actually earning more than he needed. Karen was a housewife and did the basic work of a housewife, looking after her daughter when she was at home and running various errands when her daughter was at school. Ron assumed that their marriage was in good shape. He loved Karen as much as ever and loved his daughter more than life itself. They had a nice house and neighborhood. They had enough money to deal with financial emergencies if necessary. As far as Ron knew, everyone was happy and healthy and he didn't see any problems at home. Karen, on the other hand, was very unhappy in her marriage and had decided to leave Ron and run away with a man she had met online and had been talking to for about a year. It seems that Karen and her online boyfriend thought and talked a lot about how they could put their plan into action and what would be the best way to do it. At one point, they even discussed the possibility of doing it themselves, saying that the online boyfriend could come over from his home in Nebraska and make it look like the robbery had gone wrong. Apparently, this was too personal, and they decided to find someone on the dark web who could take her husband out of the equation. They then buried him, took the insurance money, and waited long enough to pretend to grieve. And a few months later, she would take her daughter and her husband's life insurance money and start a new life in the north with her boyfriend. During the conversation, she stubbornly insisted that she had to make it look like an accident, because that way the life insurance policy would pay out the maximum amount. As I said, Ron was making a lot of money, and when he died, he was worth a lot more than that. So he would live with his new man for a few years. Back to the original plan, as I said, they were going to find a hitman on the dark web to take care of her husband, and it looks like they had some success. They found a site on the deep web that listed people who offered such services, and they got information from them. They then went so far as to transfer $15,000 into the account of the person who was supposed to do the job. Fortunately, Ron's wife and her new boyfriend didn't know how things worked on the dark web and were to some extent stupid. Apparently, they went to great lengths to make plans with this person, send money, and even set a date. On the day in question, Karen took her daughter to her grandparents' house and told Ron she would spend the day with him. While she was gone, Ron was visited by local police and federal agents. They explained the situation to him and basically took him into protective custody. Karen returned home to find her husband lying on the living room floor. Worse, Karen had apparently brought her daughter home with her. Ron was told that the police had all the information about the conversation, the link logs from when he entered the page, the emails he had sent to the fake hitman, and enough evidence to keep him behind bars for a long time. Apparently, she was so desperate to get rid of him that she was able to convince him to send her money through PayPal. She then wired $15,000 on her credit card through PayPal to have her husband killed. Whether she was clueless or just wanted it done that way and never thought to question the situation is unknown. Fortunately for Ron, she was undercover and was caught without incident. Her boyfriend was also arrested and charged with attempted murder and possibly other crimes. Both were later sentenced to 20 years in prison for their conspiracy. Ron has since remarried, and his daughter is now old enough to understand what her mother did. But he says he was lucky in this case, and I completely agree. I wish his wife had gone to a different page, had been a bit more competent, and had paid a bit more attention to the security of her messages and communications. Ron could have been legally killed that day and be living in the Dakotas with his online girlfriend. Some people have a normal job, Monday to Friday, 40 hours a week, health benefits, annual bonuses, and retirement benefits. I don't. I don't have a normal job. I can't get a normal job because of my criminal record. I am a cleaner for the dark web, cleaning the murder rooms after the buyers have tortured and killed their paid victims. I've been doing this for the last 3 years, and whenever someone needs help cleaning up a bloody mess, I go in and clean the room. I make sure there's not a drop of blood left in the room, and I dispose of any remaining body parts in any way I can. I leave no evidence. No questions will be asked. In fact, no questions at all. I can't touch these people. I just get paid to do my job and go home like nothing happened. It's a really disgusting job, but it pays very well. But one night I finally started to question my morality. It was a night when they offered me a job. It was always the same place, a rundown warehouse 40 miles from where I lived. I was called to clean the room, which was really no problem at all. But I realized I hadn't thought anything about it. As I was cleaning the bloody room, I saw a small painting on the floor. I picked it up and saw that it was a picture of a girl, probably about 14 years old. Immediately I thought that this was probably the blood of the victim I was now cleaning up, and I felt uneasy inside, but it was also a job that was done without question. I put the photo in my pants pocket and continued cleaning. When I finished cleaning, I packed my things and left the warehouse. As soon as I got in my car, I got a phone call. It was from them. They always make private calls. I said yes, and I had just got in my car. Then they told me that they had left the money in the glove compartment when they were cleaning in the car, and that I had another job in 2 days because I already had a client waiting for me. I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I decided to ask him how old he was. About the victim. They hung up the phone. I'm sure they were angry that I only asked. I didn't know if I could go on like this anymore, but I didn't know how else to get through this without the possibility of an attempt on my life. I took the girl's photo, put it on the passenger seat, and went home that night thinking about everything. The next night around 9 p.m., I got a private phone call. I knew it was from them, and I didn't want to answer, but I did anyway. They gave me the same location and told me to come back around 4 a.m. This time it was Juan Miguel Santos at 3905 North 16th Street. No questions asked. The caller then hung up. It was a clear threat. Do my job and get out of there. And the next morning you have to leave town and disappear. When I arrived on the scene, an old Grand Marcus was parked outside. Normally there would be no other cars parked there but mine, but I was worried that these people might be watching me. I got out of my car and slowly went inside. The hallway was darker than before, and I could see light coming from the room I was supposed to enter. When I walked in, my eyes could not believe what I had just seen. In the center of the room, a girl was sitting alive in a chair with her hands and mouth bound. The work was not finished when I saw the body of a man, apparently about 16 years old, lying on the ground right next to the girl. She started screaming at me and I panicked even more. I ran to the man lying on the floor and checked his pulse. He was dead. I wasn't sure what had happened to him because he had a scalpel in his right hand. I went out into the corridor and I immediately got a call. It's them, the soldiers. Are you all right? They knew something had happened. There were cameras in the hallway, but not in the room. Yeah, everything's fine. Finish your work and go. I'll leave the money in your car. They hung up the phone, but they knew something was wrong. When I returned to the room, I saw a girl with a gag in her mouth screaming for help. I didn't know what to do and I had to take care of the girl's body. I looked in the man's bag and found some weapons and tools, probably to torture the girl. I took out an electric drill and turned it on, and the girl started screaming more. She was crying and screaming. I pointed the power drill at her face and she cried more tears, and I put the power drill down. I couldn't do that. I took the gag out of his mouth and asked him what happened. He said the man had collapsed and it looked like he had a heart attack. We can't let him get out of here. They are dangerous people and there are cameras all over this building. We looked around the room. What was wrong with him? I looked at him. He was wearing a hoodie. I took it off and gave it to her. Put this on. Hide yourself and get as far away from here as you can. I'm scared. What if he finds me? She said. I looked in his pocket and found his car keys. They must be the keys to a car parked outside. Here, take these keys. I think the car outside belongs to him. But whatever you do, don't go to the police. They'll find you and kill you. Get as far away from them as you can." Before I left, I asked her name, and she said she was Crystal and she was 17. I was scared for her. I thought they might be outside waiting for me to finish. Just as I was about to get up, a car pulled up behind me. The car stopped right behind me, and 2 masked men got out. Not only that, they opened the back seat of the car and pulled Crystal out. They grabbed her. They knew everything we were doing. One of the men pulled out a gun and pointed it at me to get out of the car. When I got out, they told me to go inside. They took me and Crystal to the room with the bodies of the guests. I knew what they were going to do to us, and Crystal couldn't stop whining and being sad. This is what happens when you try to be a hero. We had to do something before there was a body, right next to the bodies, already lying on the floor. I saw Crystal by the light switch. I looked at her and motioned for her to turn it off. As soon as Crystal turned off the light, I ran towards one of the masked men. As the men yelled for me to turn on the lights, a shot rang out, and I grabbed a power drill from the floor and drilled a hole in the man's chest. I drove the drill deep and didn't stop until I heard the man choking on his own blood. I stepped away from him and listened to Crystal's ragged breathing and screams. I turned on the light and saw Crystal stabbing the scalpel repeatedly into the face of another masked man. I grabbed Crystal and told her to stop. She was scared and terrified. She hugged me tightly and started to cry. This time, we both made it out alive. We both walked back to my car covered in blood and drove away. It was 6:30 in the morning and the sun was shining. We both needed to change our identities, and I knew a man in prison who could do it, so we went straight to his house. Sometimes I think it would be better if we were both dead. Fortunately, I didn't hear or see anything, but you never know. You never know. Let's hope they don't catch us now or for the rest of our lives.